100%.
problem?
The other piece that I do focus on in this consultancy, which for me is the more fun and exciting part, the cost side of this, minimizing the cost, that's not sexy. Businesses have to focus on it, but they don't want to because it's not sexy. So what I look at is, and I've helped a number of customers already with this, revenue generation. What other payment systems, vehicles, models can you adopt that will increase your revenue overall? You're looking at taking credit card only. Okay, what if you took some type of, and I'm not suggesting this is the case for everybody, some type of stable coin or crypto payment? What if you took, in your case, wire transfer? How to make that easier for your businesses that are working with you to easily either ACH or wire transfer the money to you, where you're not taking a credit card. Like you said earlier, I'm taking a huge hit on this. Well,
Welcome to Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help manufacturing executives command the front and win the floor. I'm Richard Walsh, creator of the Sharpened Impact methodology, and I spent decades helping leaders transform frontline teams, unlock hidden profit, and capture capacity they didn't even know they had. If you want to see where your leadership gaps are costing you and how to fix them, head over to grittolead.com and run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator today. Let's sharpen your edge and get started. And we are back on STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast, with another incredible guest. Joe Zahaitis is with us today. And Joe, no one knows Joe is as good as Joe. Joe, give us the backstory. Bring us up to speed so we get into
Richard, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. Quick, I'll give you the short version, the 30,000. I've been in the payment space for a little over 30 years, credit card processing. I've worked the gambit of companies from small to midterm to very, very large to international, a certain amount of high risk, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. Mostly what I've done, though, is credit card-based processing, analysis, and support for a lot of merchants in different sizes. And my goal for being here today is to talk about some of that.
Oh, that's awesome. You know what? So, we bring people on as guests and people will hear these intros like this, and either someone's going to go, oh, I'm dealing with that right now. Or they're like, should I stay? Should I stay on the show? I'm going to jump. I'm telling you, I'm interested. It's not my thing, but I actually think there's a lot to be from your experience, 30 years of experience in this at all these different levels, including the high risk, because we're going to talk about that too. I just think it's really important for people to have an understanding of this because I don't want to say it's a big thing. It is a big thing, but there's a lot going on in the space, right? And that's what I want to kind of dig into. So let's start with kind of a basic understanding. Let's kind of throw it out there. We don't need how you began 30 years ago and all that stuff.
No, I think that from a listener perspective, from in terms of what I think that would be most interesting, starting as a framing point, that where we've gone to as an industry, as a society, certainly as a business world. It used to be that business would take cash, check, and then early on, back when Jesus left his sandals in the desert, which is when I started, a little bit of credit card. Now we've evolved into this digital payments model so much that the nature of digital payments, whether it be credit card, debit card, online, whatever that is, even moving forward into crypto and stablecoin payments, is so digitally based that it has become for most providers, service-based, retail, online stores, 90-ish, between 88 and 96% of their revenue stream is coming from these digital products. And yet most merchants that I know, and I've worked with a lot of merchants throughout my career, they just know they take credit cards. They have no idea how it works, why it works, what they're paying, how much they're paying, why they're paying what they're paying for. And that is just a mystery. And my biggest challenge to your listener base and to pretty much anybody out there is what I do as well. Okay, you're the selection of your payment provider. And from my perspective, I don't care who you pick. I'm a consultant. I don't care who you pick. But who you pick should be equally as important as picking your doctor, your lawyer, or your accountant. And sadly, most merchants, it's an afterthought. Oh, latest kid who walked in off the street, we'll just go with him. Says he can save you money. Can he? Is he? Probably not. And that, from my perspective, if you talk about a soapbox to stand on, that's my biggest thing when it comes to operators of every size. But certainly the smaller you get, the more you're probably being ripped off.
I love it because this is a point of frustration for me too, right? So I get payments, large payments, right? For consulting and stuff like that. This isn't a, $10 thing. Someone's not buying a pack of gum. Okay. These are thousands of dollars. Okay. And again, it's percentages, and you've seen the big shift now, Joe. I know you see everyone has. Everyone's getting charged these fees now when you buy. Oh, and Becky, you know this because you've been around long enough, and so have I. That used to be illegal.
The card brands would not allow you to add a fee on the top of what it was. You had to accept all card brands and all payment types had to be accepted equally. And now they've even backed off on that. Yep, that is a true statement.
Yeah. And then what I did 25 years ago, I had a construction business and stuff. I just called it a service fee, a convenience fee rather. That was my convenience fee to try to get around that as a workaround. I'm like, I had a guy, he did like a $50,000 water feature with me, and for this wedding banquet place, and he wasn't like doing it on the card. I'm like, dude, I'm not taking 50 grand. I'm not taking that hit. That's a big
Well, it's not
hit.
just that. Again, I've been in the payment space and I've had some pretty big clients. And I once had, quick story, I promise to keep it short, rather large client, shall remain nameless, but when you go up and down in a building, they make those things. Okay, that's who the client was. And it was actually one of my direct reports that had it. And we had a transaction go through.
Was he on Mayberry?
Yes, perhaps. Okay. If you're old enough to remember that, you would remember that. You got it. We had a transaction go through. This was a long time ago. Had a transaction try to go through for $285,000 on a card.
Right.
Obviously, the bank stopped it. We stopped it. Everybody stopped it. It stopped. I get a call from the senior banker over at the bank. I was working for Bank of America Merchant Services. I get a call from the senior banker over there screaming at me about why we didn't let this go through. I'm like, how do we know this is legit? The challenge is for yourself as well. If you don't let your payment, you get a one-off. One-offs are kind of okay, kind of difficult because everyone's going to question them. But if you let everybody know in the channel ahead of time, this is coming. Look, I got a big one coming through. Not going to have a lot of these, but I got one coming through. They may hold some of your cash to the side just as a risk prevention issue, just in case this thing goes sideways. They may query it more and look at the company it's coming from to make sure it's legit, especially if it's coming from overseas. There might be some challenges. Right. But at the end of the day, it can be done. What most merchants do is the assumption, it's kind of where we've come to societally, is, oh, it's a $200,000 transaction. The guy put it on his purchasing cart. It'll go. No, it won't. You've never done that before, and you want me just to accept it? So my comment to your listeners would be, just give us warning in life when things like that happen. That's all.
Yeah. How about it? Yeah. But it's wild. But I would tell people, I'm like, well, I'd say I don't have those kind of margins, for those fees on that. But, well, I want the miles. That was always their thing. So you know what I tell them?
You know what? That was actually the excuse that was used. I want the miles for this transaction. I'm thinking to myself, first of all, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was a long time ago. I think it was a government contract. I'm like, hold on a second. I have a purchasing card. You want the miles. How are you getting miles on a government contract, putting it on a card? That whole thing blew my mind. And why they're not just wire transferring the money made no sense to me. But whatever.
Right. I would just tell them, like, well, where do you want to go? I'll buy you a plane ticket. It's cheaper.
That's true.
Just where do you want to go? I go, I'm not doing it. So yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah. So as I've watched the evolution of this, okay, not in detail like you because you're in the space, but today, like you said, I have this great appreciation for it. It is also digital now. Cash is it's really nearing a thing of the past. For one thing, but checks, they're right behind that. Okay, like you said, now it's transferring money or it's the credit processor. But so, what are you doing as you're educating the public, if you will, right? And you have these services, but how are people able to navigate this whole thing? Because it's complicated. Like you said, if you're getting ripped off, is 3% good? Is 2.75? Is it, and it's coming and going. They get the money both directions, and it's like all I know is the only one winning is the bank.
Yes, and the what I present when I talk to people about fundamentally, both from a consulting perspective as well as here, is that it's not simple by design. And it's not that you need you don't need to be a rocket scientist, a lawyer, or an accountant to figure it out, but you need to be focused and you need to pay attention. My old boss used to tell me the devil's in the details. Well, you go through this statement, and the first thing, I'll give you the first hint for every one of your listeners. Total volume in a given month divided by total fees, not the fees at the bottom of page 1. The fees at the bottom of page 5, the total fees that you were charged, all of the monthly, the one-offs, the PCI, the this, the that, total volume, total fees. Divide that, come up with that percentage. That is your effective rate. That is step 1 to knowing not only how much you're paying, but how much you're potentially overpaying. If it falls, and I never say, oh, if it's this, it's good. If it's this, it's bad. If your business is fundamentally online, if it's fundamentally e-commerce, and it's fundamentally in a gray area of life, well, then your rate's going to probably be higher. If it's retail and you're selling tiny little, bottle caps in a store and you got a gazillion of them going through and there's not a lot of risk and this and that thing, well, then it should be something else. So the spectrum of the potential fees for that effective rate, but knowing that, that's the first step. And that's when you start dialoguing, someone like myself or somebody else, when you start dialoguing and say, okay, here's what I'm paying, 5%, 6%, 8%. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, 3%, 4%, that's still a lot. 2.5%, 3%. Okay, now depending on what industry you're in and how you're taking the card type will make a difference. But knowing that first piece, and here's the kicker. We talked about focus. Most businesses don't want to spend this kind of time. They barely spend it on accounting. You do that every month for a year. Why? Funny enough, you get around November, December, January, there's these mysterious fees that kick in. Why? Your volume's higher because it's Christmas. You're doing more volume, and the fees creep up a little bit. You associate it with, well, I'm doing more volume, of course, it's going to be more dollars. But when you do that percentage calculation again, suddenly you find out the percentage has gone up too.
They're Satan.
I can neither confirm nor deny the nature of the industry that has been my home for 30 plus years, but it could be true.
The whole thing is like, okay, like I said, coming and going, if it's $100 and they get their 3% or 5%, whatever, and they're getting their $3 and their $5 and their $7. And then the same guy who's paying with his card is getting feed. Okay. They're getting so pretty soon that $100 disappears completely.
There was a great interview I saw exactly on that. I literally saw a clip of it not more than a couple hours ago, to be honest with you. Funny enough, but I've been looking for it for a while, so now I saved it off, and I won't mention who or anything else. But cash to cash, I pay you $100. You turn around, you pay a bill for $100. They turn around, you get 20 steps down the chain. That $100 is still $100, and it's still worth $100. I pay you $100 for the credit card. You get 93, 97, 93. Pick it. It doesn't matter. 95. Make it easy. You turn around and pay someone else, they get 90. They turn around, you get 15 iterations out, there's no value left. That's the big challenge.
That's what people don't understand. And it didn't evaporate.
No.
Okay, then when it went into someone else's pocket.
Correct.
Okay, and it's, we know who that is. So it was so frustrating. And since I've been in business since like whatever, late 80s, you've seen all this stuff creep up, right? And you're trying to battle this with pricing and everything else. But then I was like, pricing, well, it doesn't matter because it's a percentage. So it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant if I charge more. It's kind of like I think that's why they're doing the fee separate. So I'm like, why don't you just raise your prices and have it in there? So I'm a little confused on that aspect. Do you know what I mean, Joe?
The industry itself is not set up in a poor way, but if you don't understand some of the nuance behind it, the reason that there's a percentage plus a per item fee, if you sell, just for argument's sake, you sell one item a day for $10,000 and I charge you 4 cents. I've made 4 cents, 4 cents, 4 cents as your provider. And each one of those is $10,000. So there's a percentage that's in there because that covers the fact that you have a high ticket, low volume, low quantity of them. And now that fee equals X, 2 or 3%, 4%, whatever it is. You have a product where you're selling 50,000 of them a day and they're 25 cents. So as a percentage, well, not 25 cents, call it $5. As a percentage, I started the same percentage as I'm charging you at the high level. So now I charge a percent. It nets me nothing because on each one of those transactions, I'm taking a fraction of a penny. But then I have a 10 cent per item fee. So the system is set up to balance, and it's a delicate balance of what is a large volume, low ticket versus what is a large ticket, low volume. And where the trick happens for a lot of providers, giving again some insight here, is you need to kind of know where you fall. In your particular instance, you are a very, very high ticket, low volume. So the percentage is going to seem high because of 10 cents, 20 cents. Charge me sorry, don't mean to spend out swear on your show. Charge me $1 a transaction because I don't do so many of them. I don't care. But the percentage is killing me. And it doesn't take much of a swing of that percentage in your world to have a significant cost differential. Well, we're only charging you 10 cents a transaction. I don't care. Charge me $1 a transaction. It's the percentage that's killing me. where the other guy on the other side of the side says, you're charging me 5%, 3%, 2%. I'm only charging you 2%. Yeah, but you're charging me 15 cents an item, and my items are so cheap, so low in terms of value.
Right.
It's killing me on the other side of this. And that's where you need to watch as a merchant. You need to watch that balance.
Yeah, that's really, and I think you're right about people don't pay attention to
Oh,
this
God,
stuff.
no.
I mean, I know from coaching businesses for a decade or more now. And that's one of those disciplines we have to reinstill. Like no entrepreneur wants to do it.
No. And again, I was a banker a gazillion years ago, cash flow analysis. That's where you started as a banker. You did cash flow analysis for businesses to see if they were sustainable. And one of the cash flow analysis wasn't necessarily payment processing, but where the money came in and where it was going out, where it came in, even the small ones. You did a cash flow analysis kind of like an accountant down to the penny. Most merchants, businesses nowadays, everybody in the system makes it way too easy. Here's how much you spent. Here's how much you sold. Here's what you got. Here's your fee. Boom, done. No one looks at it because it's already done for them.
Yeah, it reminds me when you're talking a little bit earlier about they make it complicated on purpose. A friend of mine, I was living in Chicago, back from there. And we're always in Chicago, the state animal is the construction horse. Okay. So it's everywhere.
I live in that world. Trust me, I know it.
So, and he's real connected, from everything. He's connected. And he goes, Richard, you have to remember there's profit in confusion. When you can't figure out why you got to go this way and do this, he goes, someone's making money because of that. Okay, that's the difference. He goes, there's profit and confusion. I've held on to that for the last 20 years.
I'm stealing it. I'm today days old hearing that one, and I'm stealing it right now. I love it.
Great. There is profit and confusion. And it's like, I'm like, okay, that's, when you're talking Chicago politics, it's deep. Okay.
I can either confirm. I worked for the state of Illinois when I first got out of college. You want to have a show and talk about stories? We worked with the city of Chicago, and I worked downtown. There are some stories, but that's another day.
I was on some committees for the city and stuff like that. So I've seen a lot. but it's that point, right? It's like, it's trying to get the analytics of it all.
Yeah.
Which is what you're talking about. How do we go about looking at this? Like you break it down relatively simple, but like that's what people need, I think, Joe, is really like you said, well, give me that 2-minute exercise per day or whatever it is, per month or whatever it is. Like that's what people need, right? Like I'm going to sit down every third Wednesday, for 15 minutes and I'm going to do this merchant processor thing. So I know. Is that can it be that simple?
Heard by my response that yes, as a start. That is the beginning of the knowledge of at least knowing where you stand. And then the next step, and that's part of what I'm putting together, both consulting as well as an online course, is then building towards now where you not only have knowledge of where you stand, but where you want to then go. Now, the biggest thing that merchants have as another problem is everybody out there in the world wants it for free. And there are providers out there that say, you don't have a merchant fee anymore. We'll do it for you and it won't cost anything. Do you really believe that? Really? Seriously? Yes. So I've seen a number of those as well.
Yeah, it's that oceanfront property in Arizona, right? Great
exactly.
Song. Okay, but
I got an island with a big statue on it that I'm willing to sell to you.
That's right. I always tell my kids I go, listen, nothing good is free.
If it's too good, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
But I'm always like, nothing's good free. I don't want something free.
In that context,
I don't want it for free.
Well, in that context, in terms of the small pieces to go along and do on a regular basis, I think that if you look at, and again, this is for most merchants and service providers and people even within the context of your listening audience, their revenue, your revenue, my revenue in general, as a society right now is fundamentally derived from the movement of these types of transactions. This is not, I don't do that. Everybody does this. And the reason I don't talk about what I do for a living when I walk into a room of people is they've been solicited 7 times in the past week by a bunch of young kids who are out there trying for the business. Yep. They've gone down this road where they've been lied to before. The last thing I want to talk about is, so when people ask me what I do, I'm a consultant. And when they ask what, I'm well in the payment space. Oh, you're one of those. Well, that's why I don't talk about it, because they've been solicited so often. If you want to talk, people will find you and they'll talk. But for the most part, the merchant industry, I'll say this about my own world, we are perceived one step lower than used car salesmen, which we've done it to ourselves.
Well, in full transparency, Joe, you do realize you're the first merchant processor guy in 350 episodes who's ever been on my show. Okay. So,
I can save you 20%. Just call me. I can't save you. But about the free thing, every merchant wants it for free. So as part of my job in previous worlds, large clients, I used to joke with all my friends, like, do you watch Super Bowl? Yes. Do you see the ads? Yes. Those are my clients. Not every single one of them, but that was the team I managed, had a lot of those very large clients. And every one of those clients would look at their fees that they were paying and go, this is crazy. It's the cost of doing business. And you mentioned the concept of the percentage, do I just build it into my fee? If you look at, and when I started in the payments industry, there were like 4 rates. And now if you each at the major card brands, I think Visa's up to $269 and Visa and MasterCard is like $229. That's not done. That's profit in confusion. Those fees would be, the contention would be, oh, this is because you're in that industry and you're in that industry and you're in that industry. And then when it gets down to the street level, all of a sudden you're in an MCC code that you shouldn't even be in, and you're being charged a higher rate. Well, it's close enough. It's okay. Yes, you can qualify. You're not going to get in trouble for it, but it's more expensive. And then on the backside, the way they're submitting that into the payment processor is where you should be, and they're taking the spread difference. Well, that's a whole other thing. But merchants look at this and say, I don't want to pay this. And then when you do an analysis for them and you show how much of it is interchange, which as a provider, they don't have any control over, that's like 96% of where the money's going. So to say, I want that to go away, yeah, good try. Nice try. It's not going to happen, because you're not paying me. You're not paying the provider. You're not paying the acquiring bank. You're paying way up the chain, and there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, we can make it as low as we can, but we can't make it go away.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know. I think like what you said earlier, 90+% are all doing this, and you have to have this, you don't get to not accept. We had in this, I'm in a co-working space here, right? So we have this big kitchen area and everything else. We had this little event. We had the Girl Scouts had their cookies set up in the corner, they're doing a little Girl Scouts cookie sale. And I'm like, and it's cash or card, they're all you can all do it now with Square.
Square.
I got 12
I'll throw it out there by name, Square.
I got 12-year-olds that are taking my card for Samoas. Okay, so I get a box, and I'm like, man, they're $6 now, man. They used to be just like, and now they're getting whacked with the fee, right? They're also
exactly. Well, here's a subtle hint to your listener base. I cannot say whether this is good or bad because I don't want them coming at me. But if you're using this one in terms of its shape, or the one that looks like on the side of a car or a building, those are the biggest infractors in terms of Square and Stripe are really set up for people who go to craft fairs, low volume, low ticket, 4 transactions a month. Yes, I'm paying out through the nose, but I don't do enough volume for it to matter, and I know what my fees are. The minute you get into that volume where as a business you're starting to do more, and I just use some because it's easy and it's what I've always done, that's what they're hoping. They just want to keep you there because now you're paying more really than you should.
So here's another thing too. So we'll use Stripe. Okay. So someone has a monthly payment and it gets taken out on the 1st, and it always gets taken out on the 1st, right? They pull from your client and they take their money. Now you don't get it on the 1st. You get it 2 to 3 days later. Now, if it's a Saturday, you'll get it like Tuesday, if you're lucky, probably Wednesday. Okay, 2 business days, then you get it on that 3rd day of the morning. So here's the thing. So I'm like, well, that kind of sucks because you took it, like you took the money on the 1st, then you get to float that for 2 days. And it doesn't sound like a lot of it's $1,000 or it's $5,000, but it's billions. Okay, they're not pushing, about us or whatever. But now you know what they do? Oh, you can have your money the same day for this fee.
For it's a little bit like, right, because now I'm not getting the overnight investment at the bank level. I'll give it to you instantaneously, but it'll cost you a little bit. And it's what I'm not making on your money as an overnight investment plus usually.
Yeah, it's just, I just laugh. I'm like, oh, good, I get to pay for the convenience to get my money. Mm-hmm. How amazing. They've already got it. It's just, I kind of take deep breaths, Joe, and I just kind of let it go. because I'm like, I'm not going to get all wound up on this stuff, but during it, but I'm like, man, these guys are, and then I try to put myself on the other side. What would I do?
If you, I agree with that, and I am on that other side, and now I'm presenting and pitching to, and I'm on podcasts and talking to people,
Right.
showing what's under the kimono over here.
Right.
But from a merchant perspective, your perspective in terms of what I would do for most service providers is, if you look at history, a restaurant, I use a restaurant always as an example. Does the restaurant charge you for the electrical of their lights? Do they charge you for the gas of the fryers? Do they charge you for? Of course not. They built that into their pricing model of what makes up their restaurant. And the part that always gets me is, now we've gone down this road. We've talked about this earlier in the show. 90+% of the revenue that's derived is derived from card-based systems. And yet, not just restaurants, all retailers, but use the restaurant as the example. Restaurants complain, a lot of people complain, the credit card fees are killing me. Well, that's because you're not building them into your cost. I don't know why we as an industry, and not even as an industry, but why as a society, what merchants in general, I want the credit card fees separate from my gas, my light, my power, and there's somehow this belief in control. Great, go back to taking cash only. Only take cash at your restaurant. See how well that works out. I welcome, and I need to know ahead of time because I got to bring cash with me. But I welcome a restaurant that only takes cash because I get it. You're tired of paying the fees, but you're willing to do something about it. Most of the players I see out there in the merchant space, I want it for free because I can't competitively. The guy across the street is cheaper. Is he cheaper because of credit card fees or something else?
Come on. Yeah, it's that is the most that's a quitter excuse. You're just laying down that no. Because I'll just go right there. Well, what value are you delivering?
Right.
I'll start right there. Okay, I'll fix your pricing in a heartbeat. Okay, if that's your excuse, okay, like someone else has a lower price, I go, man, we got a lot of work to do. Okay, I mean, we got to do kind of a demolition and a rebuild.
Right. There's then I go. I'm not a car guy. I'll be first. I'm a boat guy. I'm not a car guy. But I'll go to the car example. There's a reason why a Hyundai costs what a Hyundai costs and a Lexus and or Mercedes costs what it costs. And people are willing to pay the differential because of the perceived value that comes with it.
Exactly.
And in the merchant processing world, what I've told all of my clients and all of my direct reports and anybody, it's that value you bring to the table. And the challenge is, from an industry perspective, in a lot of ways, and a lot of providers, they're not bringing any value. That's the big problem. It's like you're effectively paying, call it, Lexus, Mercedes price, but certainly Audi at least. But you're getting much, and I'm not going to use a car type because some people may love particular car types. You're getting a much lower car value, and the expectation is, well, of course you call overseas for customer service. No, you shouldn't, but whatever. And that's where I think a lot of providers kind of try and skate.
Yeah, I think in your industry, they're just, I honestly think they're just running the number. And like as you described, they're not giving you the whole number. They're giving this percentage, the 2.7, the 2.9, whatever. They're like, well, we can do that. And they're like, they're not going to explain how the whole thing works.
Yes.
I think they literally just pitching the number. There's nothing about value, convenience. They don't talk about that at all. It's strictly like they just think you're about this number and you're going to save an extra $300 for the year or whatever that is.
But I'm going to blame the merchants to a certain extent because I've been in these conversations before. Unfortunately, at a merchant level, and that's hopefully what some of your listeners will come away with. Merchants, and I say merchants because it could be any type of business, service, physical product, online, doesn't matter. Merchants generally that take card. That's all they're focused on. What's my number? And they're not looking at, okay, that's the number, but because the way you're running it, I'm having more chargebacks and there's no one to call in customer service and you're not helping me defend them. So that ends up costing me more. That part gets forgotten. And the only thing merchants are focused on is this upfront number. Yep. And that's a huge mistake.
No, you're exactly right. I think that's it because I don't think there's only the shallowest, I'm talking puddle of understanding.
Correct. 100%.
How this works. And they just can't, there's no depth here. They wouldn't know where to begin.
Correct. Hopefully I'm bringing some of that to the table. Let's hopefully that works.
That's right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why this is important. This is, because I think too many of them are never, the more I work with businesses, and I've, again, been doing it for a long time, the numbers, oh my gosh, it's like, and believe me, I suffer from the same thing. I made a whole ton of money, then had no money. Okay. And no, and you know what else I didn't have? An explanation. Okay. So it was, I spent 20 years being a complete idiot, but you got to eventually got to start looking, and you got to ask these questions. You got to look at this kind of stuff, especially if you're, whether it's a mid or high level sales, or high volume sales rather, right? Or like me, you're high ticket.
High ticket, low volume.
Every
Yep.
sale's 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. That was a common thing for me in my first business. People pay $5,000, $10,000 all the time. Just here you go. Here's a card. And this is 20 years ago. It was still happening then with the bigger hitters. They tend to use that American Express, and they want to use all that stuff.
Well, we can get into a discussion of the different card types and the fact that
Right.
it is, I can prove it statistically and numerically that American Express cards do have an higher average ticket than any other card type. And American Express card holders still to this day. But to your point about the 10,000 and you would just take a card back in the day, it has gotten harder to have things that fall outside the bell curve within business in general, but certainly within the payment space as well. If it falls outside of the bell curve even a little bit, it's much more of a hiccup than going back to when you and I started. I remember clients that would have, we would set them up in the system. I didn't. I had direct reports that would do it. But okay, what's your average ticket? Let's put 15 grand. Yeah, but what's the real average ticket? Like 2. But we'll put 15 just in case we get one. And no one cared. I mean, the bank
right.
didn't even care because if it started increasing, they would see it and they would do something about it. Now, if you put 15, everybody wants justification out the wazoo about why it needs to be 15 as a high ticket. Well, because that may come through. So people are setting them lower, and the minute you bump that, well, we set the average, your high ticket is 3,000, and then you get 3,500, and the world comes to a close.
Right.
It's like, come on, it was just over the limit, and the guy's good for it, and he's done a whole bunch of 2,500s, 2,800s. This one just tapped a little over. It causes the world to shut down. I don't know where that fear is coming from or why.
Right.
I could say some of the things, but that's not the problem.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. It sure is. I mean, I would, I had an old Italian guy owned a car garage, repair all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And he was talking to me once because I got a charge back by a client for, I think it was 7,000 at the time. She decided she didn't want to pay. So she disputed it. So they yanked my money. They take the money from your account. I'm like, that's 7,000. I got it. I proved everything. I did all the pictures, did everything, got my money. But so I'm talking to this guy about it. He goes, oh, well, here's what you do. He goes, you got to have multiple accounts. He goes, your charge account, the bank account goes into that. He goes, and immediately shift the money out to the other account so they can't take it. So he goes, every day I transfer the money that comes from that to that.
To the listening audience, I don't want you to take that as a regular thing that you should do on a daily basis.
This was a long time ago. Okay.
There are other reasons why you would do that, to be totally honest with you, and it's perfectly acceptable to do, but not for the reasons that you're doing it. But it's okay.
I'm just saying.
I know it works, but the reason you do that, we actually had clients that had this happen, and it's becoming more of an occurrence. You get all this money that rolls in from an ACH perspective, and now you get a nefarious ACH that wants to go to that account, tap it, and it's the only one that's exposed to the world. The other one is inside. You write checks on it. You send wire transfers out. You fundamentally don't use the account number in an open space. But people then will find this ACH and then try and tap on it to pull money out. So I do have clients, and what they will do is you got a merchant account that rolls into at the acquiring bank, and then it gets distributed to you, and then you strip that account on a daily basis to put it into an operating account out of this side account. That way, if any nefarious ACHs, including someone trying to charge it back, comes in, it's like, I'm sorry, it's not there. Let's talk first before we go giving that back. Exactly. How about we start with that conversation?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So good stuff. Yeah, for sure, Joe.
Well, that is actually that's a problem in the industry that we're starting to see, and I'm starting to see it as well, is the nature of friendly fraud. Because people are like, especially if you have a service-based business where you're doing something, training, educating, consulting, coaches are seeing this a lot. Go through the whole coaching program. Well, you have 6 months on a credit card to do a chargeback. And you get 5.5 months out and someone decides, hey, I got all the value I needed out of that course I took. I'm just going to charge it back, and then service is not as intended or rendered, and fundamentally that chargeback will stick. Well, now you're taking someone and what they're doing for a living, and you're basically putting them out of business because you're zooming the system. Yeah. The card brands are starting to crack down on that because they're getting tired of it too. Because merchants are like, dude, I gotta take something else. I gotta go back to checks or something just to defend against this.
Yes, I just give them physical threats. I know where you live.
I worked in the freight forwarding business for a long time, and we used to have this joke. There were a bunch of us. I was a sales guy. I'm like, okay, well, this particular air freight forwarder is not paying us. What are we going to do? Well, Fist and Boot's going to go out and we're going to go see if they can cut us a check today.
Yes.
And 4 or 5 of us would jump into one of the trucks. We'd roll up and we'd just literally walk in the door and go, hey, you know that check you owe us? Maybe you should cut that right now.
That's right. Large Lewis. I'm sending Large Lewis.
There you go.
Collect.
That was a million years ago. That was another
Yeah,
lifetime.
man. It sure was.
What else you want to talk about? I want to make sure we're getting your listeners what they're looking for.
This is awesome. I think we're hitting some really great points on this. Let's kind of go, like, what's your main focus? Let's kind of get back to you and what you're actually doing, what you're providing. Let's kind of let people know what you're providing, what you're out there. What can they do as far as connecting with you? What does this look like? Kind of give the general,
sure,
what you do thing.
What I'm focused on, kind of, this is call it a give back, but obviously there's a fee associated with it. Nothing's for free. Is from a service provider, those people who are out there who are doing merchant processing, whether it be on Square, Stripe, running through Heartland, any of the other major providers out there, I don't care. I have no interest in soliciting your card-based business. Okay, that's my gig. My gig is to be a consultant for large, medium, even some small businesses, to help them understand what they're paying for and help them derive the best value for what they're paying for. It'll never be for free. So get that out of your mind right away. So mine is a consulting business that is out there assisting businesses, small, medium, and large, fundamentally focused on medium and large, but I'm coming up with a DIY program where very small businesses will be able to gain a lot of it without having to have me on the phone, but they can get me on the phone if they need me. And that is what the consulting practice is about. Nowhere in that will I pitch you on any merchant processing, because that's the other side of this business. The minute someone is talking about merchant processing, what's always waiting in the background is, I do it best and here's my pitch. My whole consultancy is built on, I don't care where you are, where you go. Maybe changing providers will be an option and not to anything that I even control. Go to someone else. And I refer no one. I recommend no one. My whole goal is to help you, the merchant, know what it is you're paying for and why, and get you the best value for that. That is the whole thing. In terms of how to get a hold of me, we can talk about that too.
Yeah, I think here's the important thing about everything you just said. So we talk a lot about coaching. I get coaches on, I get consultants on and stuff like that. So, and I always tell people, like, this is how you advance your business. Okay. You ask for help, you pay for help. Okay. You get coaching, you get that, then your business advances when you listen and you're coachable. This is no different. But your offering is a way to truly look at this processing system. What are you actually paying? Now, they've learned from this show today, they're paying for a lot more than what they think. Okay. And they don't understand what, where this money is going. And that's where you have to begin, right? They have to say, like, you have to
100%. The other piece that I do focus on in this consultancy, which for me is the more fun and exciting part, the cost side of this, minimizing the cost, that's not sexy. Businesses have to focus on it, but they don't want to because it's not sexy. So what I look at is, and I've helped a number of customers already with this, revenue generation. What other payment systems, vehicles, models can you adopt that will increase your revenue overall? You're looking at taking credit card only. Okay, what if you took some type of, and I'm not suggesting this is the case for everybody, some type of stable coin or crypto payment? What if you took, in your case, wire transfer? How to make that easier for your businesses that are working with you to easily either ACH or wire transfer the money to you, where you're not taking a credit card. Like you said earlier, I'm taking a huge hit on this. Well, look at those other models for other revenue structures and systems. And for the online guys, are you selling your product around the world and you're only asking for it in dollars and cents? Probably not a good idea if you're trying to sell something in Japan. But that's a whole, that goes into a much deeper level. But my focus is not just on cost containment, but on revenue generation, because in this digital world, we're myopic in the U.S. to think that everybody deals in dollars and cents. It's not the case.
Oh, I love, you save that till the end. You save all that till the end that you can do that. Okay, well, that's. Well, Joe,
if anybody's made it this far, they have an interest in you, me, and everything that's going on, and I love it. Okay. That's awesome.
Okay, this was planned then. Good. I didn't think we planned anything, but you did, and I love it. I think that additional revenue generation is key.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because we're always looking at, I always like main thing is the main thing, but then we start creating the spokes for additional streams of income for any business, and they all have them. Anyone who thinks they don't, they haven't
True.
spent.
And I will tell
30
you
seconds listening.
the madness to my method behind the fact that this is at the end. If you put that statement up front, it instantly looks like a sales pitch, and that is not the case, because for a lot of players, you're U.S. focused, U.S. based, you don't sell anything outside of the U.S. We are looking fundamentally at cost containment, but we might be able to do a few other things that can help. But for a large component of the businesses that are out there in life, you don't want to talk about that first, because again, it sounds like a sales pitch.
Right.
But if you're not focused on the next step, to your point, you're not growing your business.
Right. Yeah. Really important. I mean, and I like how you said it. It's just a lot of this stuff isn't sexy. No one wants to do it. I'll tell the people, hey, you want to systemize your business? Of course I do. Well, let's get started. Oh, you mean me? No, I don't want to do it. I just want it done.
Right.
Okay. There's a little difference there. Once you take that
everyone
next step,
wants the silver bullet. Give me one thing I can do and it fixes all my problems. It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, no, that's you haven't been in business long enough to understand that it doesn't work, but give yourself a little more time. You'll figure it out. But Joe, it's been awesome. So how do people get in touch with you?
I have a website. It's my personal branding website, and everything kind of launches from there. We have links to a lot of the others, but it's my www.my last name, Z as in zebra A. We talked about that earlier. ZAHAITIS.com. I'm sure you'll put it in the episode as well, but it's www.zahaitis.com. And the easiest way to get hold of me if you want to email me is Joe, first and name, @Zahaitis.com. Yes, I own the domain. You're welcome to join me there. Conversation. I love a great conversation like we've had today. I have no problem connecting with people. I get a lot of bot traffic, so I do apologize if there's a lot of junk that comes through. But if you really have an interest, reach out to me. Let me know you're human. Let's have a conversation.
All right, that's awesome, Joe. That's awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've really kind of appreciated exploring it, and just kind of bringing some clarity to this realm that most people just don't have. Like I said, the depth is minimal, right? And I think we gave some real context here and some real depth to this whole thing. And I want to encourage everyone to reach out to you who are thinking about this so they could get this on track, because this is a long game. Okay, this is every day, every purchase, every transaction. This is for 5 years, 10 years, 20. I mean, think about that. Do those little numbers and see what you end up at the end. Okay, it's not a small amount. Then you'll just get more angry at merchant processors.
Well, I always hearken it back to both accounting and taxes. Everybody spends a lot of time focused on their taxes and making sure they're getting every possible write-off they can on their taxes, because they want to pay as little as possible towards taxes. And yet when you look at the merchant processing world, no one focuses on making sure you're mitigating out as many as possible of those to get the best, again, value out of your merchant processing. Everyone just kind of lets it slide because, to your point, we said this earlier, there's profit in confusion. I love that. I'm totally stealing that.
That's our biggest takeaway of the whole show. There's profit in confusion. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. Well, and with that, Joe, thanks for all the time today. This has been
Richard,
magnificent, as I knew it would.
I really appreciate
it. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. If you're a manufacturing executive and you're serious about unlocking hidden profit, improving frontline leadership, and taking control of your floor, go to grit2lead.com right now. Run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator and discover your biggest opportunities are hiding. Don't leave millions on the table. Sharpen your spear, lead from the front, and win the floor. Until next time, stay sharp.